So the most obvious example of the earned media phenomenon is obviously Twitter itself, at least recently. I mean, when you were here last year, you talked about Twitter, we were aware of it, and then of course it just went and exploded, and now it's everywhere you look. What do you think? I mean, do you think it's possible to sort of identify what made that difference, like where the critical mass arose, or suddenly just became a phenomenon?
Well, yeah, first of all, I would say that I think some of this is, hype, right? And at this point, it's not even, well, I'm not sure it ever was really driven by the company. The company doesn't have an active hype machine, right? They've got one guy who manages PR inside the company, and his job has largely been an inbound handling the inquiries job for quite a while. So I think there is certainly a fair amount of hype. I mean, put things in perspective. Facebook is approaching 200 million users worldwide, and Twitter, maybe is 20 million, right? You look at the Comscore numbers worldwide. So, Facebook is roughly 10 times the size of Twitter. And there's MySpace, and there's other social media services out there that have more raw horsepower than Twitter does. But I do think that there's some things that are special about Twitter that these other services don't have. And the thing that's probably the single most important is that Twitter from day one was a platform that other people could build on. When they launched the service, there was an API. It's a very simple API. I've been told again and again and again by developers that it's one of the simplest APIs to build on that there is. And so there are thousands and thousands of third-party applications and services that have been built on top of Twitter. And the reason that's so important is that those entrepreneurs have now built something. It may be a hobby, it may be a side project, it may be earning them some income but not paying everything, or it could be a full-blown business, or it could be a venture-backed business. So there's a whole spectrum of what those things could be. But those developers and entrepreneurs who do that are now in bed with Twitter, in a sense that they want Twitter to succeed, and they tell everybody about their application. They want other people to use it, and every time they do that, they're of course building more value for the entire Twitter ecosystem. And that's, it's more of an open source kind of approach, in a sense that people can do what they want. No one has to ask permission. I mean, I still get emails from people saying, I want to build an application on Twitter, can you connect me to somebody at Twitter? And I was like, no, I can't connect you to somebody at Twitter. You need to go to the developer page and just build, right? And you don't have to ask anybody's permission. You got to get a key, you got an API key, and they issue those, and that's all there's to it. So I'd say that's the single most important reason that it's popular. And then the other thing I would say is that it is very one-dimensional. I mean, if you look at Facebook, and Facebook has changed a lot recently, and I think is now trying to emulate in some ways the Twitter experience. But Twitter doesn't really do anything that's not in the timeline, right? So you don't go to your photos pages on Twitter. You don't go to, your profile page on Twitter. Maybe you do, but it all happens right there in the timeline. That is it, and there's really only one atomic element of Twitter, which is the status message, 140 character message. Nothing else happens in Twitter. So that sounds like a negative. It's like, gee, it's so simple, it's trivial, and that's what a lot of people say about it. But I think that the power of it also comes from that it is relatively straightforward, and you do one thing in it, and that's all you do. And then the last thing I would say is that this ties a little bit back to the open thing. But I think in some ways Twitter is the mini feed or the news feed for the web, right? Because it's open to the web, anybody can build on top of it, and people embed links inside Twitter way more than they embed links in any other kinds of status messages that are sent around. So in a sense, it's become a notification system or an alerting system or a news system for the entire web. And so those are the three things that I would say have given it its juice and the hype.
I'm sorry, just a quick follow-up. When Twitter was first pitched to you,
Right.
did you recognize those three things, or is that something that's an evolution that's happened?
Well, so Twitter wasn't pitched to me. I said there's just moments of luck that happen, in a career. You gotta seize them. I just started using Twitter and I liked it, and I was in San Francisco on a business trip, and I was in South Park, and I was right around the corner from Twitter, and I just thought, well, gee, I should stop in and call on these guys, and actually couldn't see them on that trip, but Ev told me that they were actually going to spin Twitter out of Odeo and make it a separate company, and so I said, well, I'll come back with my partner in a couple weeks, and we'll sit down and talk about it. And so I got back to New York, and I said to Brad, we should go do this. We should fly out there and convince them to take our money. In fact, that's what happened. We flew out there, and we sat down with Ev and Jack, and we said, we like what you're doing. We think you should take the money from us. And we convinced them to take the money from us. So that is how that happened. And not every venture deal starts with a pitch. In fact, many of the best deals start with the reverse pitch, where we're pitching the entrepreneur to take the money from us. And so that was just, I believe it's really important to use the products in the domain that you're going to invest in, and to really be engaged as a user. And I think when you do that, you get opportunities like